Even my grandmother, who I never met, Mildred, my father's mother, knew. And I found out that like my father's mother, my grandmother, Mildred, and my aunt, my father's sister, offered to take me and raise me from this attic mother that my father had an affair with. Now, granted, back in the 70s, that probably wouldn't have been an easy task because things were different back then. But to know that, because I always wanted someone to save me. Like I said, I found out through my DNA search just a few years ago, all these relatives on my mother's side that I never knew existed, that lived well into my 20s. And that's really painful to know that there are people out there that is your blood, but they can't save you, or they won't, or they don't know to save you. I didn't even know to call them and say, can I please live with you? Because I didn't know they existed.
Welcome to DNA Surprises, a podcast that delves into the world of unexpected DNA discoveries. I'm your host, Alexis Auersalt. In July 2021, my life took a surprising turn when I found out that I'm an NPE, a person who has experienced a non-paternal event. In other words, my biological father isn't who I thought he was. Join me as we explore the stories of NPEs, adoptees, and donor-conceived people and their families. Get ready to unravel the astonishing journeys that begin with a simple DNA test. This is DNA Surprises. You can't unring a bell. After a DNA surprise is uncovered, after contact is made with newfound relatives, what's done is done. Which is why some people are hesitant to dig into the truth in the first place. You never know what's waiting for you on the other side. In this week's episode, Jeremy shares why he didn't decide to take his test to confirm the identity of his biological father until his daughters Googled his family. After a tumultuous childhood fraught with instability and abuse, he couldn't bear the thought of rejection. Jeremy also reveals what happens when he finally decided to take that test and make contact with his paternal family for the first time. Before we begin this episode, I do want to mention that there is discussion of childhood abuse and suicide. Thank you for sharing your story, Jeremy.
My name's Jeremy, and I am 54 and born and raised in Baltimore. Thank you for having me on. As I tell this story, while there is a lot of trauma in the beginning, there can be a love story ending to a DNA surprise story. And mine is one of those. It continues to evolve. I was raised by a mother who's an addict, single mother, pills and booze. She was married a lot. My last name has been changed multiple times as they adopted me into the family. This new husband she had, my name's been changed like 4 times. Spent the first 7 or 8 years in a very small 2-bedroom apartment in Baltimore City. I don't recall a lot of men there, but I was very young. I was told that a lot of men were in and out of the apartment with her. And to be honest, during those very early years as an adult now, the only thing I can recall is that I probably was stuck to her leg like Velcro. It was just me and her against the world, no one else. No siblings, no father, no grandparents. My grandmother was in the picture a little bit. But I can recall times of being left at the kitchen table in this little apartment for hours while she made me eat some crazy liver and onions kind of thing that no kid would want to eat, and the torture with that. I've seen pictures of me years ago as a small child, black and blue. I recently reached out to one of those husbands that she had. When I reached out to him, he was a very, very nice man. I asked him what had happened during my childhood. They were married for about 6 months. He told me where I was around a year old. Her addiction is what broke up their marriage. And I asked him, did you ever witness any abuse? And unfortunately, he said yes, to the point that I begged her to let me take you to the hospital. And when I'm talking to him, I was like, that tracks. That makes sense, But then I started going like this. Wait, what year was that? Wait, I was 1 year old and she's beating me to the point of hospitalization. Again, it kind of tracks. She married again when I was 8 years old, which is still the last name I have today. That marriage maybe lasted 10 years. That's when I recall a lot of the horrific beatings. I recall like maybe an 8-year-old birthday with a fat lip. As a young child, I would have to help her drive the car. So she would show up multiple times if she had to pick me up from somewhere, maybe my grandmother's or some school function. Sunglasses on at night to hide her blurry eyes, of course, slurred speech. And it was pretty common for me in the passenger seat to bring my left arm over and quietly turn the steering wheel a little bit up so we wouldn't rear into the parked car where we're heading towards. She'd always slap my hand away. And then 5 minutes later, I would be doing again. I've done a lot of therapy, and a lot of folks out there listening to this probably can agree and understand. Single mother, only child, an addict, you get something called an attachment wound or a mother wound. So when a baby does not connect at that crucial time during its infancy with his mother, he ends up searching for it the rest of his life. And that's what I still do to this day. So when I was running away as an early teenager, I would run to friends' houses and basically just get mothered by their mother. And I would eat it up. Oh my God, it was so good. I'd have to sleep on sofas or in a sleeping bag on the floor. As a teenager, I worked at a local hospital in Baltimore and ended up working with a lot of like soccer moms who had, kids that were much older than me, and they finally found out what was going on too. And I would spend a lot of time at their houses running away. My mother would somehow find out where I was, would scream and yell on the phone to the mom who was taking me in for the week or two. Where's my son? I know you have him. Not fun.
Did you ever ask her about your biological father? And what did she say?
Yeah. You know what is funny? She would, when I was old enough, probably preteen or teen, she would tell me his name and the fact that she was in touch with him through lawyers. So if I go back to the beginning, she had an affair with a married man, someone she worked with, a person who owned the business that she worked at. And while she was pregnant, and again, this is all secondhand knowledge I've learned from my siblings that I just discovered that we'll get into. They told me a lot about my childhood as they learned it from our father and their mother. When she was pregnant with me, she tried to commit suicide twice with me inside of her, all to get his attention, try to leave his wife. She would show up at their house while my siblings were 5 and 3, I think, at the time when I was born, at least 2 of my siblings, screaming at the top of her lungs, "Why won't you see your son?" The police were called. She just is unwell and is always a negative factor in a lot of people's lives. I learned a lot about my childhood from my new siblings. I learned after I was born from them and their mother that she was committed into a mental ward. I don't know who took care of me then. And I'll be honest, the suicide thing, I learned that maybe 3 years ago, and that took me some time to get past. That was a tough one. I say in the book that I'm writing, my mother got pregnant out of leverage, not out of love, which isn't fun because you just end up asking a lot of why questions about your existence and your identity and all that.
So you came to learn all of this from your siblings after you found them.
Yeah.
But growing up, she told you his name and that she had contact with him through the courts. So was there never any encouragement of you reaching out to him or him being in your life to your knowledge, at that time?
Yeah, she asked me a lot. She would always say, if you ever want to reach out to him, I can get in touch with him. And listen, you don't want me, I don't want you. I mean, fuck off. I can't comprehend at that age when she would tell me these things as a preteen and a teenager to get up enough courage to even begin that journey. I'm the child. and a lot through this journey, and you'll find out a lot of things were asked of me, like, why didn't you reach out? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you? And I'm the kid. You put me on this earth. It was your choice, And some people in my life who have made those statements still don't get it. So no, there's no way. Even in my 30s and 40s, I would tell my story at a party or something, just say, what was your childhood like? And I'd tell them, and they were like, you never want to reach out for your father? And I'm like, fuck no. No.
No, but it's more like she didn't truly offer. She kind of parentified you and made it your responsibility, but she didn't say, I'm going to take you to go meet your father.
No, she never did.
Spend time with your
wow,
father.
You're bringing up something I never thought of. She probably would have thought that I would have wanted to go to him and be with him and leave her all alone. I never even thought about it the way you just said that. Yeah, she just said, if you ever want to, you make up your mind and I can make it happen, maybe,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's funny that you asked that. Thank you for that insight. You probably are familiar with IFS or parts work, internal family systems, and that whole parentified, there are parts to me like a performer part. I'm a musician back here, and there is no better high than to be on stage for me. I mean, if I can get the adoration and the love that I missed as a child through music, where I can take something in my head and have many, many, many people see it and appreciate it. Oh my God. That's like, there's like 50 mothers in the audience in this bar for me right now, And then there's other parts that are like protector parts, the one that shuts down and goes, I can't deal with this at all. I'm running, and I've learned there's a lot more parts out there than I'm trying to integrate in this moment. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you had a very tumultuous childhood, to say the least. I mean, just horrific abuse from your mother and men in and out of your life, and no connection to who you know as your biological father. You've got a name. What happens next? Like, take me through maybe how you got to the place of wanting to learn more.
Finally ran away for the last time in my teens. Again, slept on many sofas. And, I'll say one thing. And the reason why my mother was in touch with my father through lawyers is that he held some money, a small amount, for me for school. So I ended up going to a Catholic high school here in Baltimore, which was phenomenal for me to get me on the right path. And then 4 years of state school, which again was phenomenal for me to have determination and wanted to make something of myself. So I'm in college, marketing. I worked at a hospital in Baltimore and ended up running into this young girl. Her name is Tammy, and she was a physical therapy intern there. And 33 years later, we're here. She's my rock. I don't know anyone in this world that can put up with me the way she does and all of my baggage. We had kids, 2 girls. And I said to myself, I'm going to do everything different than my mother did raising me. And of course, what do? I go to the extreme, the other end of the spectrum, and I'm like this uber helicopter parent. No crumbs on your face, no dirt on your hands, the nicest clothes. You get everything you want the second you want it. So that's how I was as a parent. It got even worse during girl teenage years, as you can imagine, just trying to protect the girls from everything, which was not a reality. And then when my girls were 19 and 17, my birthday's in July, and for the last few years, we would go and eat crabs like we do in Baltimore, like everyone does in Baltimore. And they finally said, how come we know nothing about you? We don't know your family. We don't have grandparents on your side. We have no cousins. There's just you. We know nothing about you. And I said, all right, well, you're old enough and I'm dying to tell you. And I told him about my mother, as any 19, 17-year-old can understand, not a very nice person my mother was, and left home early. And then I picked up my phone and I said, listen, this is what the internet tells me about my father. It's his picture and his name. And they picked up their phone and they found my 2 brothers and my sister within 2 minutes, while we're eating crabs. This is your brother, this is your other brother, and this is your sister. Now, I know the first question everyone's going to ask is, you could have done a Google search and done that yourself. Yeah, I could have. But there's no way in hell I'm going to go down that road and risk getting rejected. Because rejection and abandonment, my mother rejected me for her addiction, and my father abandoned me at birth because he was married. So my life is spent not getting rejected or abandoned. And the performer in me, luckily I learned this part came out as a young kid. I can charm really well. And my motto is I'm going to charm you before you reject me. So I will do everything it takes to connect with you as quickly as possible, unhealthy or not, just to feel secure. You could be the lady behind the counter at the restaurant or something. You know what I mean? That's just how my brain is wired.
How did you feel when they pulled up that information and you saw these real people on their phones?
Well, of course, I went like white as a ghost. I immediately saw a resemblance. The kids saw a resemblance, which, you know, I'll say this a lot. When you finally see someone in this world that you look like, or you share eyebrows with, or eye color, or hair, or whatever it is, and you've never experienced that before, it is amazing. Like, absolutely amazing. Someone like me and others out there, they have an identity crisis. My last name is just the fourth marriage my mother had. You know, I don't know any of her side of the family. That's a whole nother podcast of finding out the fact that there was all these relatives on her side of the family, but she was the black sheep, so I never met any of them. And more importantly, none of them saved me. None of them took me into their house in Baltimore, because you don't do that back then. You brush everything under the rug. So yeah, I was blown away. And this is July of 2019. So for the next 6 months, I sit on this information and I cyber stalk the fuck out of my siblings. And luckily, they're absolutely amazing. Everything I find is beautiful. And my wife every day and I have a conversation about, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And you know, there's one side of me saying I have every right to know where I come from and I have every right to meet my blood. And the other part of me is, if this destroys that family, you have to go to your grave with this. At the end of December, early January of 2020, I had made a decision not to contact them because, I mean, something like this ruins families. It does. Yeah. And I'm not going to do that. You know, I would say to my wife, I'm blessed. I have 2 kids. I got a wife. I got a good career. I got a house, you know, roof over my head. What do I need? But apparently you need more in this life. So, like I said, I'm a musician. I played a wedding in 2020, in January of 2020. And at the reception, I overhear this friend of a friend talking about the high school she went to. And since I cyber stalked my siblings, I knew the high school they went to. And it's the same high school. And I said to Emily, you went to this school? Yeah. Well, did you know this family? And I gave them the family's last name of my brothers and sister. Yeah, I graduated with so-and-so and so-and-so. Of course, I went white again. It's a whole new, like, what do I do with this kind of information? And then a bottle of wine later, she convinced me that I had every right to contact them. And so I did the whole spit in a cup through Ancestry and connected all the dots in the tree. And everything was exactly like I had figured out over the internet anyway.
That's what I was going to ask is did you decide to take a DNA test to really just solidify?
Yes. And it was really just for more of a CYA.
Sure.
In case, because, you know, this could get really controversial. I spent days in front of the computer going, oh my God, this is my grandmother. Oh my God, this is my grandfather. This is my great, great, great grandfather. And I'm this percentage Jewish, more than I ever thought I knew. And I have Russian Jews in my family and Polish Jews. And it was such a beautiful foundation to start understanding who I am and where I come from. And I hadn't even met them yet. So anyway, you know what happens when you turn your profile from private to public on like an Ancestry. It starts pinging folks and they get emails. So turn my profile from private to public. I had missed a bunch of messages through Ancestry from someone. And this someone was named Kathy. And she's my cousin. Never had cousins growing up. And she's, you know, she's putting stuff in Ancestry, like through the message saying like, hey, I think we're related if you want to contact me. And then like an hour later, I still hadn't looked at my phone. She sends another one saying, I'm pretty sure I know how we're related if you want to, contact me. And then by the third message, when I finally looked at my phone, she was like, yeah, I think I know how we're related. I'm pretty sure. So we should probably talk. And she had figured out that her uncle, my sibling's father, my father has a sister, which is Kathy's mother, that she figured out that there was a child out of wedlock, So I finally contacted her through Ancestry that Monday night, and we talked for like 3 hours till like 1 a.m. It was amazing. I can't explain to you what it's like to have a conversation with someone that has your same blood, and you've never had a conversation with anyone like that in the 50 years you've been on this earth. And she's so beautiful. And she's like, do you want to meet? And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what are you doing now? I know it's like 1 a.m., but maybe there's a bar open. We ended up having dinner the next night. And her sister, my other cousin, came along, and I was a few minutes late. And I walk into my neighborhood kind of restaurant bar here in Baltimore that we were at all the time. Everyone knows us. And the place is packed. And there's these two beautiful women, these two gorgeous Jewish women at this table. And I knew it was them in this crowd. And we're crying and drinking and trying to eat. And then they're kicking us out as they're putting the chairs up on the tables next to us as they're closing down. I told them at the end of the night, listen, I have to do this the right way, which means I have to contact my father first before things I don't want things to backfire. I don't want anyone to come to me and say, you did this first and you're a scam and all that. So I got his email address and contacted him the next day and said, hey, my name is so-and-so, my mother's so-and-so, and I recently joined Ancestry and can see your entire family, wink, wink, and I'm sure they can see me too, wink, wink. 20 minutes later, email me back. I'm freaking the fuck out. I'm like, Tammy, I can't read this. Please read this. I was sure it was going to be like, fuck off. You would understand this. Every step that I'm telling you, and it's going to continue as I tell the story. Every little thing, every email, every contact could be a rejection. And I have to weigh the fact that this may not work out, and how am I going to come back from it? If I had gotten rejected by this family, I don't know how I would have come back from that easily. This is my blood.
Right. And without the connection to your mother or anyone else, like, you're putting a lot of stake in that.
I don't want to be alone in this world,
Right.
He replies and says, it's been a long time. If you can give me some time, like a couple days to digest all this, I'll be in touch. And we had a phone call a couple days later. It was horrible. He was such a dick. I mean, I know he doesn't mean to be. He's very businesslike and like he's 80, and that's how, a lot of 80-year-olds are. And he asked stupid questions like, I thought you would have reached out in your 20s. Why didn't you? And again, I'm like, I'm the kid. I feel like I'm the only one that understands that when I say that. I'm the kid. Yeah, you're the parent.
It's not your responsibility.
You put me here. I'll never understand why he asked that. And I said that. I think I said something just like that. I told him about the abuse on the phone. And I knew in my heart right away that he didn't know about it. He just knew my mother was crazy, and if he was going to save his marriage, he had to get my mother out of his life. And I do believe he didn't know. And come to find out, soon after that, he went into therapy. He spent the next 18 months in therapy until we met. He didn't meet me for 18 months.
Was he still in Baltimore?
Yeah, he splits his time between Baltimore and Florida, like a bunch of old people do. The next day, which was January 16th of 2020, which is my gotcha day that my siblings tell me every year. This is when we gotcha, like a dog, but I love it. They had found out and sent me an Ancestry message. And all three of my siblings wrote it together. And it was phenomenal. They said stuff like, we're all going to figure this out together. They used the word like awe or the word together, or, they said, were close as siblings. Like, they don't hate each other, which is, again, everything I wished they would be, close, and they would talk. They said, we're very grateful that you did this, and we hope to hear from you soon. It was so positive. And, it took me like 20 minutes to digest it. I take it downstairs to Tammy, my wife, in her office, and I collapse on the floor. She thought someone died. And I'm holding the phone up going, they use words like together and all of us and, all these other words that created a unity theme in their letter. And my wife's like, you're crazy. This is happy news, But again, I mean,
I'm sure that's a lot to take in.
When you search for something like this or you want it your whole life, listen, I get trauma made me who I am, and I've learned a lot. My vulnerability is a gift, and I'm grateful for all of it. But doing it alone was miserable. Was absolutely miserable. And I wished I had some siblings to just put my head on their shoulder after a beating, or to ask them, why is this happening to me, or us, as why is mom this way? None of that was answered for me. So I replied back to the Ancestry email about an hour and a half later, after I picked my mushy self up off the floor, and Tammy and I put together a response that was coherent through all my tears. And I said something like, thank you so much for reaching out. This is a dream of mine. I can imagine how traumatizing or how crazy all this is for all of us. I tried to be inclusive too in my writing for all of us. I said, this has been quite a roller coaster ride for me during a time of indescribable uncertainty. And that sentence is something my siblings always go back to when they tell the story, because I can't explain to you how scary this process was. I can't explain to you. It takes every ounce of bravery inside of you to do something like this, because most of the time it doesn't end up well. But, I do believe my vulnerability. I do believe the fact that I came to this family with my heart on my sleeve. And listen, I'm sure they looked me up on the internet and they wanted to know if this was a scam or not. Right? Yeah. And my profile on the internet is nice enough that they wouldn't think anything bad. This was 5 years ago. So we spent the next many months, unfortunately during COVID, which ruined everything, because we couldn't see each other. We had planned to make all these travel arrangements to meet, and we just had to do it over Zoom or WebEx. We would get to know each other. It took my sister a little bit longer to contact me, but my brothers contacted me right away. A lot of FaceTimes. My sister took about 3 months, which was devastating for me, because someone like me, they if they don't connect quickly, they feel useless or rejected or something. You know what I mean? But I learned that, everyone has their own process during these types of events, and you can't expect someone to move 1,000 miles an hour like I do all the time. You can't expect everyone else to move the same speed during their process. It's one of the first major things I learned during this in therapy. So I was able to say to myself, my sister is taking a little bit longer than the brothers, but she's maybe working things out with her mother, because she's really close to her mother. And it took a long time to be okay with all that. It took my father 18 months to meet me, and he was in therapy because of the guilt he has over the abuse.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pate. Fancy Feast Gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful, and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast Gems.
First of all, this is a remarkable story, just in how resilient you are. I mean, I kind of hate it when people call me resilient, because it's like you shouldn't have had to go through all of the things that you've been through. You shouldn't have to be resilient.
So agree.
But it is a story of resilience.
Yeah.
Did your siblings have any inkling that you existed, Or was this a total surprise to them? Like, I guess I'm wondering if your father ever disclosed anything to them. Did his wife know? Like, what did you learn there?
Yeah, I did learn a lot from my siblings about my youth, which is funny from their mother and our father. So their mother knew of the affair. Their mother knew that there was a baby out of wedlock because my mother was at their house screaming and yelling outside on their front lawn. Other adults in the family during that time, like my aunt, my cousin's mother, Kathy's mother, they knew too. Even my grandmother, who I never met, Mildred, my father's mother, knew. And I found out that like my father's mother, my grandmother, Mildred, and my aunt, my father's sister, offered to take me and raise me from this attic mother that my father had an affair with. Now, granted, back in the 70s, that probably wouldn't have been an easy task because things were different back then. But to know that, because I always wanted someone to save me. Like I said, I found out through my DNA search just a few years ago, all these relatives on my mother's side that I never knew existed, that lived well into my 20s. And that's really painful to know that there are people out there that is your blood, but they can't save you, or they won't, or they don't know to save you. I didn't even know to call them and say, "Can I please live with you?" because I didn't know they existed.
Right.
So my siblings didn't know. And when their parents divorced, they just said they were getting divorced over the many infidelities that our father had. And to answer your next question, I'm sure is coming is, yeah, they were really pissed at their parents that they weren't told there was a sibling out there. My siblings have never used the word half brother. Never. They say brother. And they know the words I like to hear. They know what I need to feel secure because, it's been 5 years and I'll be honest, like in the beginning, I was 10% sure they were not going to go anywhere and 90% sure they were going to be like, well, this was fun, but we're out. This is only temporary. And then over the years, it's gotten bigger. Now I'm at like 95% sure they're unconditionally going to love me forever. But I need to hold on to that 5% because I just need to be ready to put my wall up and block the rejection when it comes. I need to have a plan.
Yeah, if it comes.
It's not going to come. But unfortunately, our brains are wired so much in trauma that that's how it thinks.
That really doesn't sound like it's going to, which is amazing. How much time have you spent in the what ifs? Because I think it's a natural thing, right? To spend the time wondering, what if my grandmother had been able to save me? But I also think that can just wear you down, right? Because you can't go back in time. So how much time did you spend on that? And where are you sort of at with it now?
Well, I still have what ifs. 50 years of wiring in your brain isn't just fixed overnight. And this family wasn't going to fix it all. I mean, I'm in intensive therapy and have been for the last 5 years. I have like 4 therapists and I use psychedelics, which are amazing in a therapeutic environment to rewire your brain and neuroplasticity. I thoroughly believe in it. Listen, what if this person took me in? What if I contacted my father early? What if I grew up with my siblings? I mean, I know it sounds so cliche-ish, but I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have my children. All of me and my siblings could have hated each other by now if we had met early. I mean, now we meet and our brains are mature and we're adults and we can put aside, stupid stuff and immature stuff and really get to the point of healing. Yeah. What ifs are, listen, I always wanted to be a rock star. What if I met Tammy at 21 and broke it off because my dream was to go to LA and make it? Honestly, I probably would have been dead by now because, somebody wired like me is going to constantly be running for that next high of adoration and love. And of course, that's going to involve some unhealthy behaviors as well. Yeah, what ifs are still there. They are. They're just fewer and far between. And, you learn, I study Buddhism now, which is amazing.
Have you had any contact with your mother? Does she know that you are in contact with your family?
No. So besides when my grandmother passed in my 30s and I had to help her with the funeral arrangements, it's been 30 some odd years. She's never seen her grandchildren except maybe once when they were babies. They're grown. They're graduated from college. One's getting married. She's missed it all. The very first time I met my father was at a restaurant, and his new wife was there of the last 20 some odd years. Wouldn't even look at me. And I'm describing, as I talk to my father, I'm describing more of the abuse, and he's telling me about what he remembers from that time, how he met my mother, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm bawling I must have bawled the first dozen times we met. And he goes to the bathroom, and I look at her and I say, please look at me. Please acknowledge my existence in this world. I've been a secret my entire life. Will you please just look at me? And she finally did and broke down. But it was one of the first times in this journey that I stood up for myself, and I said, I'm here. And don't put me under the rug anymore. Don't brush me under the rug. I'm here. There were many times after that. There was one specific time later that year or the next year where my father and I had lunch alone, just the two of us. And he spent most of the lunch saying these words, I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not going to abandon you, over and over and over again, until he believed that I believed it. And by the 12th time, of course, I'm losing it, bawling my eyes out. This family has done a wonderful job of not only facing the secrets they have in their family, but understanding my pain and giving me what I need. Another example of that is, I'm covered in tattoos. Most of my tattoos are about this journey as well as my childhood. But this family held this huge Hebrew naming ceremony for me where they gave me my Hebrew name, and it was a huge thing. Rituals, and I'm in my underwear laying in this sand circle, and there's eucalyptus and all these prayers, and they gave me my Hebrew name, it's called Amiasaph, or Ami. Everyone calls me Ami for short, and it means beloved son, come to unite. And this family will say that while I always thought I found them so I could heal, they'll say it's the opposite. You're healing this family. You're making us think about what it means to be family and have blood and talk about your emotions. And I still don't get it.
Amazing.
I still don't get it.
Honestly, I've talked to a lot of people who have found family, and I don't know how many I've really spoken to that have been so welcomed, at that level. That's really, really special.
Yeah. Now, remember, it wasn't easy, and maybe
sure.
I'm welcome, but reluctantly in the beginning, but I showed up as a real person with real emotions. And everyone would say to me in the family, why are you doing this? And I said, because I discovered I had siblings and I want siblings. I discovered my blood, and that means so much when you don't know your blood. And my life has changed. I know who I am. I know where I come from. Not everyone in the family is as close to me as others. And it takes a long time to accept that, because I thought I would walk into this family and they would love me at 10,000 miles an hour like I fell in love with them. And it doesn't happen that way. The best part is learning how to deal with that, because it's a life skill. Not everything is going to work out the way you want it to as fast as you want it to.
That's true. Now, your daughters are the ones who kind of made this happen. Mm-hmm. What has their reaction been to this, and your Tammy as well?
Yeah. So Tammy is definitely involved more than the girls, because the girls are on their own or in college and stuff. But we have taken some family vacations together. When I am out in Phoenix, my oldest brother's out there, and the girls will come out for their spring break and spend a lot of time with my brother and my sister-in-law out there. My family welcomes the girls so beautifully. One of them's getting married, and the siblings are invited. But the girls, they step back and they're letting me go through this journey. I will say this, for any spouse that's going through this with their spouse, Like if you're the spouse of someone that's going through it like me, Tammy felt left out, like for a lot of times. And it's understandable. I mean, I am consumed with this journey early on. I eat, sleep, and drink it, and she graciously took a step back while also making sure I was mentally well during it all. But it's worked out. I couldn't have done this without intensive therapy. I couldn't have done this without a beautiful family, a stable family, and a stable marriage, because you can't do it alone. It's too big. It's a beautiful love story, and it's got a lot of bumps in the road, but whose life doesn't,
What advice do you have for a parent who may be keeping a relationship with a biological parent from their child?
Don't keep the secret. Secrets kill families. It might be hard, but again, if the foundation of family is there and love is there. When I heard my brother speak and he uses the same inflection in me, it is a beautiful thing. The first time they said they loved me, I have all these firsts. The first time my niece said uncle, all these beautiful firsts are just indescribable. They really are.
And what advice do you have for someone who's just uncovering their DNA surprise story?
Don't do it alone. Take it slow. You have every right to find out your story. And like I said before, everyone will have their process of meeting you or not meeting you, unfortunately. But if it's a happy story, just remember that everyone has their own baggage and it has nothing to do with you. Like, if you're starting a journey like this, all the shit, everything that went down has nothing to do with you. None of it's your fault. It's going to feel like it.
It's so important.
You're going to blame yourself all the time. And why won't this person love me, or why won't this person call me? I wish the best for anyone who has to deal with this. But having a strong support system behind you and not doing it alone is very important. Very important. So.
Yeah. I think that reminder that it's not about you, other people's reactions are not about you, is so important. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast and bravely sharing your story today. You have been through so much in your life, but to see you kind of emerge with this positivity and gratefulness and just a positive outlook moving forward is really inspiring.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again to Jeremy for sharing his story. If you have a DNA surprise that you'd like to share, please submit your story at dnasurprises.com. And for early, ad-free access to episodes, join me over on Patreon at patreon.com/DNA Surprises. Until next time. This episode of DNA Surprises was hosted, produced, and edited by me, Alexis Auersalt. It was mixed and mastered by Josh Auersalt of Siren Recording Studios.